Good morning, YouTube. Today the topic of this video is NSAIDs, and it's not gonna be as exciting as a lot of the other videos I've made, and that's because I've run into some potential litigious issues I can have in the future with discussing such, prescription drug treatments. As I'm not a medical doctor, I'm simply a high school student. I want to give a quick disclaimer before I begin. I am not a medical professional. Like I said, I'm a high school student. I do not encourage nor condone nor glorify the usage of such prescription nor over-the-counter drugs. I am not in the position to be able to prescribe or give any medical treatments. Please take what I say with a grain of salt. This video is strictly educational and is for entertainment purposes only. Once again, uh, I'm not encouraging the usage of any drugs, and I'm simply making this video for educational purposes. Because of that, I will not be able to tell you guys how to take such drugs or the method of which you can take them going forward and in the future and within this video. So now let me get into the heart of this video. NSAIDs. They're an acronym for non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs. For explain how NSAIDs work. Well, actually, I'll explain how they work or what they are. NSAIDs typically are known with the names aspirin, diclofenac, naproxone, ibuprofen. There are a few others out there. Paracetamol. There are a few others out there. And all these drugs are classified as non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs. You'll probably hear popular brand names such as ibuprofen and things related to that. Like I said before, I explain how these drugs work. I will explain the normal mechanism of action of how inflammation works, typically in the body, and then how NSAIDs influence that and target that to lower inflammation all around. Now, what goes on in the body? Let's say you got cut while trying to cut some bread with a knife. What happens is the afflicted cells within your body, the afflicted cells will release phospholipids. Now, these phospholipids from the cell membrane get released, and they're going to be quickly converted by this enzyme known as phospholipase A2. Phospholipase A2 is going to conjugate them, take off some functional groups and all that, which I'm not going to get into this video. Maybe in a later video I will. It's going to convert them into arachidonic acid. Now, this arachidonic acid will also then be converted by COX-1 and COX-2. These are the very important enzymes that you guys are going to have to remember in this video. COX-1 and COX-2, short for cyclooxygenase 1, cyclooxygenase 2, respectively. And these enzymes are going to convert this arachidonic acid into leukotrienes, thromboxanes, and most importantly, prostaglandins. Now, prostaglandins are kind of like histamine in a way, where they play very important but several or multiple different roles throughout the body in regulating many important physiological functions. This has functions that relate to pain, inflammation, temperature regulation, GI mucosal regulation, and renal perfusion, and also blood clotting. The important distinction to make between COX-1 and COX-2 is that you can think of COX-1 as having more kind of necessary or physiological effects on the body, while COX-2 have more anti-inflammatory, more analgesic, more antipyretic effects on your body. COX-1 regulates as I said, the conversion of arachidonic acid into prostaglandins that regulate renal perfusion, as prostaglandins are very important for glomerular filtration by vasodilating the vessels, the afferent vessels in the kidneys. They're very important for initiating gut mucosal lining and the synthesis of that to prevent internal hemorrhage and peptic ulcers from too much acid in your stomach. This is why it's very important for you to typically have some food with an NSAID, because the food will stimulate your gut to secrete mucus in spite of the NSAID being present in your system. COX-2, on the other hand, does actually have some, because it's antipyretic, it has some activity in the hypothalamus, as it does lower, can slightly dull out the effect of fever or rise in body temperature. And it can have some analgesic effects and anti-inflammatory effects, as they will drastically lower prostaglandin synthesis and from COX, thromboxane synthesis from prostaglandins. This is why they can be kind of dangerous and good, as they can prevent blood clots, because they will lower thromboxanes. Uh, Going forward into this video, now that I've explained how these COX enzymes works, how the COX enzyme work, NSAIDs work by basically blocking. They bind to COX-1 and COX-2, and they just prevent their functioning as an enzyme. Therefore, they prevent any conversion of arachidonic acid into prostaglandins. Now, COX-1 and COX-2 are these NSAIDs have different affinities for these different COX-1 and COX-2s. Paracetamol is actually a great choice NSAID for specifically pain and analgesic purposes. However, its mechanism of action is not currently clear in the literature. One thing to note, though, the literature does suggest that it's slightly more liver toxic than a lot of other NSAIDs. So that is one thing to take into consideration if you do have liver disease or NAFLD or some sort of other contraindications. Aspirin, on the other hand, is slightly more, has a higher affinity for COX-1, which is why it's used for people who may be at risk of thromboembolisms or blood clots, because it does drastically lower thromboxane production from prostaglandins, which can prevent blood clotting within your body, which is a great choice. So these are all things for you to take into consideration with your primary care provider. Don't listen to me, of course, for you to take into consideration when choosing which drugs to take. I would say ibuprofen has about an equal affinity for both. And oh yeah, we forgot to add diclofenac, which is typically found in the cream. The cream Voltaren has a slightly higher affinity for COX-2, which is also great and can be modulated for whatever purposes you need. So as I've explained, I'm just going to restate, these NSAIDs bind to COX enzymes and they prevent their functioning, which will prevent arachidonic acid being converted into prostaglandins and then leukotrienes and what's called thromboxanes. I think about it covered everything. Some things to add. If you are using ibuprofen or NSAIDs for pain, for muscle soreness, it is typically best to try to stay away from that, because of the fact that there's a chemical cascade or a signaling cascade that occurs in your body to signal muscle growth. Typically, when you have these, what's it called? Shoot, I'm forgetting, blanking. These leukotrienes will then signal many other chemical messengers such as neutrophils, and this will then lead to an increase of IL-6, interleukin-6 within the body, and have a chemical cascade to increase protein synthesis via the mTOR-FOXO1 gene transcription pathway. So it's important to consider that if you're looking for muscle growth. You may want to steer clear away from taking things like Voltaren. Once again, consult your doctor. It is very important for you to take into consideration if you have kidney disease or a history of kidney disease, that you may want to stay away from many NSAIDs, as I stated earlier. They block COX-1, which may lead to great vasoconstriction within the afferent tubules within your kidneys. So it is very important to try to be cognizant of that and perhaps stay away from NSAIDs if you do have those contraindications. I think I've covered about everything. I think I've covered about everything. Yeah, probably covered about everything. Anyways, YouTube, quite short video, about 10 minutes today. Hope you guys really enjoyed this. Please do leave me a comment. Let me know what you guys think. If the knowledge in here is good, bad, whatever, or if you can add anything to this conversation, that'd be great. Thanks, guys. Have a good rest of your day. Goodbye.